Take a look at this. The Dallas Stars, Jim Nill, certainly busy adding and trying to bolster his lineup for the upcoming season. Some of the big names they brought in this offseason: Ryan Suter on the back end, and between the pipes, a guy by the name of Braden Holtby. We bring in a guy by the name of Mike Heika right now, senior writer for DallasStars.com. And Mike, let's start with Ryan Suter on the back end. Why do you think he ultimately chose to sign with the Dallas Stars?
He said in his interview he wanted 4 years. He believes he has that remaining in him. In fact, he even said he thinks he can play till he's 45. And I do believe the Stars were the only team that really wanted to give him 4 years. So that's one. Two, I do think it's a great group of defensemen. If you're a defenseman, you want to play with teammates who I think can help make you better than, being with Miro Heiskanen, being with John Klingberg, being with Esa Lindell. Ryan Suter adds to that group. He won't have to be a 25-minute-a-night guy, and yet I think he will have the ability to play off those other defensemen, and I think that's important to him.
Who do you think he plays with? We have him paired with Heiskanen right here, but how do you see the blue line shaking out for maybe opening night coming up?
I actually talked to Rick Bowness today, and he said it's all to be determined, and I truly believe him on that. I think he'll play with Klingberg simply because he wants to play the left side. Klingberg, plays the right side. Heiskanen could play the right side, so we'll see about that. But I do think they'll start out with Suter and Klingberg, and then Lindell and Heiskanen.
Okay. Another guy you recently spoke with, the captain, Jamie Benn, talked to him about a variety of topics. What are his expectations for the upcoming season in Dallas, coming off a disappointing campaign by his standards?
Well, his expectation is always to win it all. He is an interesting individual in that he can be almost frustrating because you'll ask him about individual numbers or poor performance or this or that, and he literally only is thinking about winning the next game. And I think that's just, it's how his brain functions, and it's good for him. But yeah, he understands. He's getting older. The team's getting older. I even asked him about the contract situation because Pavelski can be UFA at the end of the year. Klingberg can be UFA. Radulov can be UFA. Rick Bowness's contract is up at the end of the year. So there's a lot riding on this year. And I do think that Jamie wants to embrace the expectations and really just put it in one game at a time, which is like how he likes to do it, cliche and everything. But basically put it all into let's win right now.
Goalie situation, certainly one of the big question marks heading into this year. What's the latest with Ben Bishop and his health?
It's, again, to be determined. I personally, and I have nothing to go on this, it's just a gut feeling. I personally think he wants to play this year. I personally think the Stars want him to play this year. Now, the contracts and them being $3.5–4 million over the cap would say, no, the best thing is put Ben Bishop on long-term IR. The problem with that is I believe if you come back and play, which I think he would need to do, then you don't get any of the long-term IR. So, basically they could start the year, see what they have in Hudobin and Holtby, and then shuffle that out. If they have to bring in Jake Ottinger, they can do that. But I believe, and this is just a guess, that their hope is that Ben Bishop would be their starting goalie in the playoffs. Because I do believe he's their best option, and I think they really want to win it all, and I think he'd be the guy who would give them the best chance to do that.
All right, you mentioned some of the guys who their contracts are coming up at the end of this season. John Klingberg is one of those guys. What do you make of his situation right now? Does he sign a long-term deal to stay in Dallas? What's the latest there?
I think they want him to. The problem is the current price for defensemen in the NHL. If we're talking $8 or $9 million, I don't think they can do that. John would be 30 when this contract starts, his extension. And if you give him a 7 or 8 year deal, he'll be 37, 38 when it ends. So it's just a matter of, would he take a 8-year deal for less than what the market price is going, or do they try and sign him to a 5 or 6 year deal at what the market price is? The Miro Heiskanen, I think a lot of people thought he'd go with a bridge, and the fact that he didn't and he wanted the long-term deal. In the long term, it'll be a really good price, but right now it's gonna tie their hands, especially with John Klingberg.
Yeah, Klingberg just smiling at what some of the numbers we saw from this free agency with Dougie Hamilton and such. Mike, appreciate the time as always. Enjoy your summer, and look forward to your coverage in the upcoming season.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Mike Heika of the DallasStars.com. You take a look at the Central Division, and based on, look, this is the Central coming up this year, but based on the record that we saw last year, and the Stars in unfamiliar territory at the bottom of the pack here in a vaunted Central Division. A lot of their success is based upon some of the big horses up front on that top line, Seguin and Benn, and by both standards, Benn coming off a very disappointing year, and Seguin dealing with an injury for much of the season. Any concerns with those two names for you this season?
Well, we'll look for any group to compete in the Central Division, and you saw the way that division shakes out. It's tough to knock off a handful, probably four of the groups, clubs in that group. To do that, you need a couple of guys like Benn and Seguin, to be impactful in that top six. And really, over the last couple of years, and you referenced it, JMO, for different reasons. Benn, by virtue of perhaps his age. Seguin, I think, likely by virtue of a rather injury plagued last year plus. They're just not where they've been typically when the Dallas Stars are a force in the Central Division. So in order for this group to fare well, in my estimation, Jamie Benn's got to return to, and I don't think he's going to be back to Art Ross form at any stretch now, into his 30s, into his mid and deep 30s, but he needs to be an impact player on a more consistent basis. Seguin needs to be able to tally 25 plus for this group, in my estimation. For Dallas, constructed the way they are presently, especially at the forward group, for this group to factor in the top four in the Central Division.
We always talk about goaltending depth, and certainly the Dallas Stars are deep at that position. Bishop, Khudobin, Holtby they bring in. Ottinger, the young guy we've seen get some starts in the past couple of seasons. Where are you as far as the goaltending department? They have big names, but is it solidified right now?
They've got options. There's no question about that. But the part that I find really unsavory about the Dallas Stars situation at the net minding position is you're waiting for somebody, and for a variety of different reasons, to emerge from that four-headed monster that we just showed you on a graphic. You're looking for Bishop. Does he solve, has he healed to the point where he can emerge and come back and be a true number one for you? Can Khudobin, at a rather senior stage of his career, continue along? I think he's turned in some really serviceable minutes going back 2 years in terms of the playoff run this group had. Khudobin taking them all the way to the final. Is he able to replicate that again? And does Holtby able to kind of shake off a lackluster past couple of years, albeit the number one in Washington, as a backup to Demko in Vancouver last year? Is he able to shake that off and compete for the number one job? I think he's capable of it. Again, not ideal. You're wishing, hoping, leaning in. Who emerges from this group?
All right, a lot of question marks with the Dallas Stars.
No
Those
question.
get answered in a couple of months when they drop the puck down in Big D. We'll take it.